Is this thing on? All right, welcome back to another episode of the Summits Podcast. Wherever you guys are listening in or are YouTubers out there, if you are on YouTube and you haven't subscribed, shame on you. Please do so. We could use all the additional likes, subscriptions, etc. Today we are having another powerful guest. Miss Melanie Brewer comes from Carmel, Indiana, as we were discussing. But we'll let Mel kind of give herself her own introduction. So welcome to the Summits Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Why don't you kind of give us a quick background on who Melanie Brewer is?
Well, that's a great question and a very difficult answer.
A lot bundled in that, right?
You know, I'm born and raised in Indianapolis. You know, I have family kind of all over Indianapolis area, West Side, grew up in Davis, Giants. So I still have some West Side blood in me. Sisters are out there, Plainfield, or I guess Brownsburg and Avon.
Mm-hmm.
You know, dad's South Side, mom's Speedway, kind of all over. And
so, okay, real quick.
Yeah.
Mom's Speedway. It's as the time of this recording, April 21st.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Close to May.
Very close. She just moved to Speedway too, so she's in for a
and for a surprise.
Yeah.
Are you guys race fans or?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, gosh, yeah. Indianapolis West Side. I mean, Ben Davis is right next to Speedway, so we grew up going to the race and.
Instead of school?
What? What, Speedway?
No, going to the track instead of going to classes.
Oh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. You're in a safe space. Like, I would have been disappointed if you said we never did that.
Yeah. I don't know. I'll keep that between me and.
Right.
So do you have a guaranteed parking spot then, right? With your mom being there, right?
Yeah.
So you can easily get to the track then.
Definitely.
You don't have to fight all the traffic and everything.
And Georgetown was a frequent place that we would visit as high schoolers, and always try to find trouble over there. It was easy. So Indiana State grad, moved back to Indianapolis area up north to obviously find opportunities. Obviously Hamilton County area and North Indianapolis, was growing that time in the early 2000s. So worked as a server, bartender for a while until I fell into the job here at the City of Carmel, and been here ever since.
Nice.
And so obviously that takes up a lot of my time.
You said you've been at City Hall for how long?
16 years.
16.
Yeah.
And what is it you do there?
Community relations and economic development.
Okay.
So a little bit of everything.
Sounds like a very broad
it is
skill set.
But it's great for me though, because I get bored really easily.
Okay.
And so that no 2 days are ever alike.
Mm-hmm.
And I get to be a little creative and also get out and meet a lot of people. And I'm very much an extrovert most of the time. So, it's been a really fun job just seeing Carmel grow and being a part of that, having a little piece of that.
I'm sure you've seen a huge change in the last 16 years from the first project that you're on to whatever project you're working on now, right?
Yes and no.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like a change as in landscape, right? But this is something that the mayor has been building internally for years. So it's fun to see that plan actually come to fruition, and be a small part of that. So it's been exciting. So beyond my job, I was married for a couple of years. I was with my husband for almost 10, 11 years. We met through mutual friends through college. So we actually went to school together, but didn't know each other until after, and met through some mutual friends. And
Well, that makes for a interesting segue, as we like to ask most of our guests. Melanie, what is your cancer story?
Well, my husband was diagnosed just a few months after we were married. So it was 2019 in April.
Okay.
And we were visiting family in Arizona, and we had just walked from his parents' house down to his grandparents' house, just a couple of houses down in this retirement community in Arizona. And we're packing to leave the next morning, and he has what I thought looked like textbook stroke, and just kind of went numb and straight in one arm, and just with Mel, he was like, he knew something was going on, fell to the bed, luckily, and seized a little bit, and I rolled him over and called 911, and they got there very quick. I mean, we were in a retirement community. He just had turned 40, and so we were rushed to the hospital, spent a couple nights there. Finally, the MRI showed that he had a brain tumor, and so we were woke at 2 a.m. to transfer him to another hospital. At that point, you just listen to the doctors, right? You're just like, I don't really know what's going on. I thought my husband had a seizure or a stroke. It turns out it's a seizure. They blamed it on a couple different things, actually said it was alcohol-induced, which was kind of, it upsets you a little bit, because they even wrote it in his chart just by asking him some questions. And he says, we drink over the weekend, sometimes I have 7 drinks in one weekend. And, and so they, a lot of just finding out what's going on and misdiagnosed. But needless to say, they took us to a new hospital, and he's so drugged up. The funniest part, through all this, he's just light and trying to always make a joke. And he's been carted down the hallway in a stretcher, and he's like, it's not a tumor. And he's like, to the copter, or what is it?
Back to the chopper.
Back to the chopper, yes. He's like, to the chopper in the hallway. And I'm just like, of course. This is just, a serious situation, but of course you will find the joke in it. But then what wasn't as funny is that we get back to the hospital, and they're like, okay, we're going to do brain surgery. And he's like, I don't live here. I've already spent 2 nights in a hospital, 2 ambulances. Like, I'm not going to do that. So, okay, well, then you should take a medical helicopter home to Indianapolis. And he looked at him and said, I just fucking paid 2 nights in a hospital and took 2 ambulances. I'm not paying for a medical, because he was seizing, and they didn't think that he should be on an airplane. And we had to move our flight back a couple times. Finally, sitting in the airport ready to board the flight, he has another seizure. And it was very minimal. He could tell it was coming on, so he would pull his T-shirt up because his face would, you could just tell. And he had a very minimal seizure, literally while it was boarding, and then we waited till it passed, got on the flight, got home, and the next morning it was doctors and, brain surgery. That I'll never forget when they took me and his mom in a room after this. The surgeon took me and his mom in a room after the surgery and said, we got as much as we could. There's still some remaining. We're worried that it's finger-like, which at that point you're confused. You're like relieved that the tumor's gone, but confused because obviously the surgeon wasn't confident that it was all gone.
This happened in really short succession, right? It was like
a couple weeks time.
Okay.
So, and going through that, and then also like trying to do your regular life stuff. It's a very tricky situation, and Marc was very private about his diagnosis and what was going on. He never wanted to be treated like a patient, right? So that was one thing I always tried not to do, is be strong for him and not treat him like a patient. You want to have normal conversations with someone and not have them looking at you with those eyes and poor you, but yeah, because then I'd be out. Like I said, we were just married like a couple months, and you'd see people like, how's married life, newlyweds, and I'm just like, yeah, it's great, but so soon after, they tested the tumor, and it turned out being glioblastoma, which the first thing he told his mom is, don't Google it, Mom. Which, of course, everyone is going to do. Obviously, glioblastoma has a very short lifespan. It's mostly found in older adults. So his age, it's not a common thing. So to him, and, he thought, well, age is on my side. I'm healthy. I should be able to beat this. And, of course, the doctor had positive, or at least outlook, but again, it's glioblastoma and it's cancer, so it's not curable. And his doctor asked that he suggested that we see or look into trials, and then look into this magnet thing that Marc wears on his head and with a backpack and all of this. And Marc's just like, no, I'm 40. I want to live my life. I don't want to be on the beach with this magnetic thing on my head and a backpack. Like, I don't want to live life like that. So as much as I wanted him to do the trials and look into it, you have to honor what he wants. So we did, just standard care, radiation for 6 weeks, every day, Monday through Friday. And then chemo was oral, and he meditated every day. He read books and, had this positive outlook. He didn't really change much about his lifestyle for a very long time, and he just pushed through. And then we had to do chemo a second time, and then another tumor showed up. So that tumor, or that growth, we tried oral chemo, and I get the number of how many times he did chemo mixed up because it just all sounds like it's a blur. When he went to the infusion chemo, that's when things started changing pretty dramatically. He seemed to be, for the first time, I saw a change in his personality. And, when someone's diagnosed with brain cancer, especially being his wife, it was a constant, like, did I see something different, right? Did I see something in his personality change? And, it's like you have normal husband-wife stuff, right? And you're like, well, did we fight because he was feeling this way, or did, and you can't help but think about that. And I was thinking about that and can't imagine what was going through his head. So, when that chemo started getting to him, I blamed it on the chemo for a while, because you think it's chemo brain, right? He's just kind of out of it. I mean, who wouldn't be when you're going through something that dramatic? It's attacking your body, right? So there were a couple months time where, things like packing his backpack to go see his parents. He literally put like a T-shirt and a pair of boxers in there, and he just was standing in his room and like staring off. And I'm like, you gonna get ready? Like, what's going on? And he's never been like that. We're very independent. Like, we've always done things for ourselves, right? But when I started noticing that he needed my help, game over.
I can tell you that these feelings you're not alone, because I have a good buddy of mine who I went to high school with, and then a couple years at IU. Also, same diagnosis. Around the same time, I want to say, and I should know this, but he was a little older than 40, but 42, 43, 44, somewhere in there. GBM as well, and very similar story. Unfortunately, brain cancers, and the docs that are listening can correct me, but like brain cancers are a bitch, because that whole blood-brain barrier to go in and try to actually extract the entire tumor is extremely difficult, if not impossible. It's a very aggressive form of a tumor. I know Dave, in his particular situation, they did surgeries. Did a couple of, I think he did a trial at Duke. But ultimately, I think it was about give or take 2 years, I want to say. And he passed, so I will actually connect you with his wife to
Sure.
You guys can connect. I think that'd be good. But just know that what you're experiencing, both now but also then, is you're not alone.
Yeah, and that's when you started out like, who's Melanie? And I'm like, I don't really know today. And I guess that's my battle right now. Is just it's easy to fight or flight, right? For me, I'm a strong person, and people just keep telling me how strong I am, which is great, and that's nice. But I'm like, deep down inside, I don't feel strong. I don't have a choice but to be strong, and Marc would want me to be strong. So I'm not gonna let anything take me down. I mean, Marc's not here, and I am, so I'm the lucky one. So, yeah.
Well, he's lucky to have had you there helping and being the strong one. I can tell you that. I know back in my particular situation, I've said this before. If I were still single, and in particular, unfortunately, I was here in town where I was born and raised and had family and friends around. But if I got out of college, let's say I got a job in Seattle and had gone through this experience out there, nothing against Seattle folks at all. It's a great city, but to not have that support network, that would have sucked.
Absolutely. And that's one thing, and I'm glad you brought that up, because he and I, there's no way we would have done this alone. And we have the biggest group of people around us that have been just absolutely incredible. Friends, family, strangers, colleagues. There's just, I had friends open up a fund for me and to help us through things. And it's really hard to accept that. I'm a very independent, both of us are very independent. So it took Marc a very long time to even accept help like that. He refused people to come over and help with the yard, and refused any kind of monetary support. And it got to a point where I had to sit him down and say, Marc, I have to accept this, that I can't do this alone. And he understood, obviously, but it's a pride thing. And, all I could do is, help him in the ways he allowed me and go from there. We had a private Facebook page for a very long time that, talked about his diagnosis and, things like that. And there was one time he was like, there's too many people on this page, I don't know. I'm like, okay, I'll go through it and I'll remove people, and, but it's like I was saying earlier, it's hard being, I'm not minimizing him having cancer and going through that and feeling and knowing he's going to die one day, but I'm on my end, it was very hard. I needed that support too. And it's like the questions and, hey, how's your marriage? Isn't it great? And I'm over here. Having that support system was important for both of us.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
So when did Marc pass?
February 7th, 2022.
So shortly after the Heroes Gala, and I know you were there, I believe,
yes.
Correct? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask the obvious, potentially dumb question. So what have things been like since February 7th?
Very fight or flight. Thanks. As much as you plan for it, and I think I spent so much time planning, getting my life together and making sure he knew that I was going to be okay. I spent so much time doing that. Grieving wasn't my first priority, right? So it's been up and down.
Bit of a roller coaster.
Oh yeah. Especially when, you want to stay strong, and for him and for his family and for our friends, it's, being a person that people can lean on, but then also being a person that myself can lean on. And so that's been a challenge. But I also find comfort in just, listening to songs that remind me of him. And, for example, I literally parked the car when I got here, and Tennessee Whiskey came on. And it's one of our songs.
Good song.
Yeah.
Very good song.
And I literally laughed when I parked, and I said, okay, Marc, you're here with me. I get it.
Yeah.
Just things like that give me comfort, that, and a friend the other day, she said, do you ever talk to him? And I'm like, oh, I don't know. I mean, kind of, but she's like, well, you should just try it, just talk to him like he's there, and so things like that I just remind myself to do sometimes when I just,
Is that what this is?
Yeah. So this is, again, back to our friends and how amazing of a support group we've had. My friends decided they wanted to make a shirt and sweatshirts for them to sell and to raise money to put in that account that I was talking about. So they created this, and it's got...
see if I can do this where we can get an idea what it looks like. I think we can... I'm trying to get the
so
camera there.
Just things like he drove a Ram truck, so I've got like a Ram up here, and Love is More Precious Than Gold is the song that he and I first danced to at our wedding. We got married in the OBX. We've got some Rams here in the school. So the school is important to us, because when we traveled, whenever we would go to a new city or place, we'd always come back with a sugar skull. So our house is just decorated in sugar skulls like crazy, which is weird, because we started doing that before he was diagnosed with brain cancer. And it just, for some reason, it started meaning more to us.
Indiana Rye, is that a...
Yeah, I think we just kept that old style Indiana Rye on there because it's like that Tennessee whiskey label.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yep.
And then finally Brain Gang.
You know who would look good one of these?
What?
Chris Stapleton.
He would. I should send him
Chris.
Chris.
Let us know. We'll send him one. We'll get you one.
We're obsessed with you.
I'm not necessarily obsessed, but we'll send you a t-shirt or a sweatshirt. Sorry.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I should send it. We spend a lot of time on the water, so that's the anchor. And Brain Gang. So Marc's Brain Gang is what we called, actually, we created that page on Facebook. It was just a private group, and we called it Marc's Brain Pain.
Okay.
And so then once he passed, or when he was put in hospice, is when they created this shirt. And so we just call it Marc's Brain Gang. Just his group of supporters. And,
I like it.
his job, like, they bought up hundreds of shirts and sold them, and all were wearing them around and to the memorial and
That's
whatever
awesome.
else.
Yeah.
So
Where did Marc work?
So he worked for Industrial Electric, or the Central Indiana Alliance. I don't know, there's a couple different terminologies, but basically on the their job is on the campus of Eli Lilly, and they work closely with Wilhelm. So he's got lots of crews. He's a safety guy, right? Indiana State safety, so construction safety. So he was a safety director there, and his boss, Gary, was, shout out Gary, miss you. He was incredible through this whole thing, and just very supportive, and made sure that we had what we needed, and that, he just had a huge supportive guys. And even at the memorial, the things they came through and said about Marc, and just, it's just like, why don't we say these things when people are alive? How come I didn't know this much about Marc, and just how much people loved him and thought he was, such a stand-up guy. I mean, everywhere from like interns that said, "Hey, Marc took me out and got me drunk first night, first day," and and then to like old retired guys that just hadn't seen him in years, but just always remembered Marc's way, his sarcasm and his stubbornness, and so it's been great.
So I know it's still pretty fresh. What kind of advice might you give someone who finds themselves in your situation or the situation that you've experienced?
Communicate more with your loved one, and that's one thing I wish I would have done more. I would honestly just say communicate. Take time to talk to each other about how you're feeling. I mean, that sounds so easy and cheesy too at the same time, but there are a lot of things I wish he and I would have talked about sooner. As much as you want to be strong and you think you don't want to talk about the inevitable death, it's going to happen eventually, whether it's from cancer or falling off a bridge. I think it was something that we were both terrified of, that we didn't even want to approach that topic, so it was hard for us to live in that reality until it was reality.
Right.
The day he got put on hospice, we came home and I asked him, because I knew that if the doctor saw how quick he turned to say within 5 minutes walking in the room and saying, there's nothing more we can do, then I knew that it was going quick. And I said, when we got home, I asked him about funeral and how do you want to, I knew that he wanted to be cremated, but, we had never talked about how do you see that day going? What do you want me to do with your ashes after that? Things like that. It just, have a will, talk about your estate, where things are going to go. I'm embarrassed to say that I don't even think I asked him like life insurance. Like that wasn't even a concern. I knew that I could take care of myself, but at the same time, it's like when you get that call, like, oh, life insurance, and he has this amount, and you're okay. I don't know. It just talk, communicate.
Right.
Support, and it is fight or flight, but like I'm saying, I don't think I took time to grieve as much as I maybe could have. But at the same time too, I think we're always guilty of beating ourselves up and saying, hey, I could have done it this way, should have done it that way.
Yeah.
But to this day, I find notes around the house that he left about, his, how scared he was, and
if there's a way that we can help you digitize those, let us know.
Okay.
Because that's something that, something you need to have copies of, and just as a insurance policy, so to speak, to digitize it. Just God forbid something would happen to the actual tangible notes.
Yeah,
that'd be something you definitely should hang on to.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah.
So what is the best way for someone who wants to get a hold of one of these sweatshirts that they could do so?
They can. That's a great question.
Okay.
They could probably just reach out to my friend Taylor Rice. Actually, it's her husband Andy.
Does he have these up on a website somewhere? We could post the link.
No.
Okay.
But maybe
we should do that.
Maybe we should.
Okay.
Yeah.
Stay tuned, folks. We're going to figure out how to get some more of these made, and we're going to put them up on a site for you guys to buy. They're pretty cool. Yep. We'll get one in the hands of Chris Stapleton, and Chris will then put out a message of where you guys can go to get them. I don't know, Chris. I just made that up.
Yeah.
But we'll try.
We're projecting it, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And see where it takes us.
Yeah. Taylor and Andy Masari. That's my friends. And Melissa and Jason Buttram, they've also been amazing helping out with the fund that my friends created for me, and Kevin and Jess Krugerberg. I mean, I can literally name so many people that
the Brain Gang.
The Brain Gang.
Right.
And
Brain Gangers that are listening.
Yeah.
Kudos to you guys for sticking by these guys to help them through this. We know that you'll continue to do so, because the easy part is when Marc was sick and in February and March. The harder part is a year from now, 2 years from now, 5 years from now. But we know that the tried and true crew that helps their friends out will still be there in the years after. So kudos to you guys, and that's your challenge, to still be there a year, 2 years, 5 years out. What questions do you have for us? What can the heroes do to help to continue to support you guys?
Keep that. I love that you have this podcast. I mean, it's hard to have those difficult those conversations, right? Sure. Nobody wants to talk about death and cancer. Nobody wants to cry and grieve openly and in public. But I think it's important to make others not feel like they're alone.
Yeah, well said. So some of the comments, we don't receive a lot of comments,
but
positive or negative. Yeah. We'll take them.
Well, they do. They're good though.
But I will say a few that we've received. People have said that, thank you for doing this. I find it very therapeutic. However that means to them, and that's fine, because we all know there's, hundreds of types of cancer. That everyone's story is a little bit different.
Yep.
And so if we can assist those going through the experience in some way, shape, or form, then that's why we're doing it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And, I've had so many people reach out and want to share their stories with me and connect me with people that have been through similar situations. And, I mean, I'm sad to say that I haven't really done that. And it's a little bit of my personality type. I'm a little independent and stubborn when it comes to things, and I just have to grieve my own way. But I do know that this is something that hits a lot of people, and I won't stop talking about it. I won't let it go, because if one day someone needs me, I'll be there, And like you said, I find comfort in that, and it is therapeutic.
Yeah.
No doubt.
Yeah.
Well said. All right. Well, thank you for sharing your story with us today. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome. And thank all of you guys for listening and tuning in. Once again, if you have not subscribed to that channel, the Heroes Foundation's YouTube channel, that is, please hit that subscription button. Hit the notification bell so when new episodes like Melanie's drop, you guys can be made aware. Thanks again for your time, and beat cancer.